Hi again, everybody. Got an interesting project coming into the shop this week. My buddy Adam, this is not Adam Booth, although Adam Booth is a friend of mine as well. My friend Adam lives here in the Phoenix area, and he bought a new lathe that he's getting up and running for his business, and he tore into the apron and found some pretty sad parts in there. So it looks like maybe this lathe sat outside for some time in its life and got some really bad pitting and really bad wear on top of it on some of these parts. So we need to make some replacements and make some adjustments. We're trying to do this for reasonable money. He just relocated and is starting up a new shop, so we don't want to go with all new gears and redo everything to the nines. So we're going to do this in a way that may not be the best, but for the situation it is the best. So this shaft, what we need to do is actually cut off this this shaft segment, and then we're going to bore out the center of the gear, probably to a 1/2 inch. This gear is like it's 1 1/4 inches or something like that, 1 3/8. So we'll probably make a 1/2 inch hole all the way through there. I'll make a new shaft with all these features on it and on these sizes, and then just turn it down to a shoulder to that 1/2 inch diameter and press it in here. And then Adam's going to TIG weld the end so that it's permanent. This will make it a lot cheaper not having to buy that new gear. This one's actually in decent shape. This is another shaft for the lathe. It's actually kind of an interesting part because, I don't know, it's just made in kind of a strange way. So socket cap screw holds this little cap on the end, and then this bushing has the snap ring groove in it, and that just sits on top of the shaft. So I don't know exactly why they made it that way, but I'm sure there was a good reason. And then there's 3 positions here for a ball detent that are completely rusted and nasty. And then this looks like threads, but it's not. Those are just grooves that I think are 60 degree, but I'm not sure. I haven't measured it. So we'll probably just make a form tool to cut those down to the right size. Basically inside there, it's like this is serving as kind of a rack for small amount of movement on a pinion gear. On top of that, we're making 2 simple bushings for the, I think this is the power feed rod on the side of the bed. Those are just worn out, so we'll make some new ones. That's simple. This one we'll want to push out and make a new one. If we can find it and it's reasonable money, we'll replace this gear and make sure that it fits on the shaft nicely. This is this one here, where that key, this thing is just terrible condition. So if we can get a new gear, we will. If not, he'll run it until tragedy strikes, and hopefully in the meantime we'll have found replacement parts. This one isn't as bad, but it's still pretty chewed up. This one's pretty bad. And these two mesh. So those are both pretty much to knife points. So not ideal, but again, this is an old lathe that's wasn't real expensive. He got it at an auction. Needs it to be up and running as quick as possible for his business. So I think what we'll start with are the bushings. Those will be simplest, and if he wants to pick those up first separately, just to get that part of the machine, ready to go back together, we can do that. And then we'll move on to fixing this and making this from scratch. So there's a good look at Adam's new logo, Beltwell Iron Company, welding and fabrication. He's got obviously a lathe and a milling machine, does all kinds of ornamental iron work. So like gates and interior features that are made of metal. Does some really cool stuff with special finishes and patinas and stuff like that. So if you're in somewhere in Arizona, he's done some really high-end work at some really fancy houses and businesses. So check him out. So I've got a little piece of drop material. This is from Adam. He had it from a previous project, so we're going to use that. And each of the bushings we need to make to start with here are 1 inch 1/50 in length. So instead of making this, having this stick out just enough for that first bushing, it doesn't make a lot of sense to add that extra step in there. I think we've got enough material to have parting space or, material for the parting blade to cut off, and then still have enough to hold on to make both bushings at once, make the bores the same because they are, the print is the same for each of them. So try and do a little planning here. So that would be 2 inches, 300, right? Would be the overall length of the 2 bushings pushed up together. And then I've got my parting blade is 125-ish, so it's about an 1/8 inch parting blade. So if we zero there and then we go 125 for the parting blade for the first bushing and then 125 for the second parting bushing, we'll be at 250, so it's another 1/4 inch. So can we get away with that much sticking out of the chuck and still have enough to hold on to? I think we can. That's a good 1/2 inch to hold on to, and I'll take it a little bit easier. I'm not gonna make it go too crazy and take huge heavy cuts, but I think that'll be just fine. Okay, I've got my solid carbide boring bar in here. I can actually fit a bigger bar in here, and that would be a lot more stable, but it's harder to see on camera, so we're gonna run with this little guy. And if it's just stuck out too far, too wobbly, we'll change it out after we get some shots of the boring action here. All right, that leaves us about 5/1000ths for the final cleanup in there. So why don't we go ahead and do the OD, and that way if there's any dimensional change or it becomes out of round after turning off the OD, we'll have a nice finished round bore. So as I said, when we got set up with the part sticking out so much, we're not gonna take any huge heavy cuts, but shouldn't take too long. So here we've got our 5 bushings. I had 3 more to do. I didn't want to show it on camera. It was basically the same process. There is a way to do this the quote-unquote right way so that they're symmetrical and everything, but it's really not going to matter. So for these, what I'm going to do is just mark it with my little Pica marker, and that'll just give me something to follow, and then I'll use a little lollipop cutter on my micro die grinder to just hog out some material, make it so that oil can get back in there somewhere, and allow this thing to not eat itself to pieces over a short period of time.